These readings don't mean anything. Basically just have to start over. I finished with the carving, got the shape that I want, so now I'm going to go along the edge and route for the binding. This is a jig, like every jig I have. It's an idea I got off of someone on YouTube and put my own little spin or built it with the particular pieces that I had available. But this enables me to follow a contour and still route a perfectly 90-degree channel into the edge, regardless of any sort of curve for my binding to sit in. Now I need to make sure I've got the right depth, the right width. Once I've got that set up, I should be able to route along both sides. Let's see if I can bring in close so I can show the setup process. I am going to attempt to do this with the cell phone. What I need to do, first take my binding, and I want to see where my depth is at. Now I've got to look at the deepest part of the cutting blade. As you can see, it focus, there we go. There's a little bit that comes down further. So that's the piece that I've got to measure my depth off of. I'm just going to put it up there, adjust my depth, and I want my cut to leave just a hair of trim sticking over the top edge, because it's pretty easy to go through and scrape the edge of the plastic off to get a perfect flush. Much more difficult to bring the wood down to the level of the top of the trim. Yeah, I should really be looking on this edge, because I can't guarantee that those edges are absolutely perfect. Yeah, I think it actually does need to come up just a hair. That should be just about perfect. Okay, so now I'm gonna lock it down and that part's set. Second step is to make sure that I've got the depth right. That's a little trickier. Probably measure rather than go by feel, but feels a pretty good indication. Yeah, that seems pretty much perfect. And I'm pretty sure that the last time I used this was the same thickness of binding that I was using, because I get all this binding from Stu Mac. Generally just try to buy the same stuff each time unless I've got something very specific in mind. We are all set up and ready to go. Before I carve on my actual piece, I'm gonna grab a nice squared off piece of scrap and run a test channel to make sure the binding is a good fit. I've got my piece of scrap, and what I've done is put it in there and I bump it right up against the blade and then back it off just a hair so that it's almost touching. Now this is a pretty shallow cut, but routers are still notorious for running away, so I need to keep that in mind and be just as safe as I can and know that it's going to try and kick the piece back that way. That's why my workpiece is going this way and why I put arrows on here, so I would remember. Yep, we can kick that back just a little bit more and then I can scoot it in and make contact. I think we're ready. Safety glasses. Let's see what we got. Oh wow. Yeah, see, it's actually just the tiniest hair too deep. Perfect depth though. Exactly what I want. I actually need to adjust it up just a little bit. I'm gonna do that now. Compare it to my previous cut. I think that's about where I want it. I'll lock it down, follow the same procedure on this side, do another test cut. Now it is just barely over. Maybe, I mean, I'm gonna have to scrape the binding anyway. That's just how binding works. There is a lip there. I feel like it's just a hair too much. So let's look at our thing here. I'm at 1/32 of an inch. That's 1/64. These readings don't mean anything in terms, they're only relative. They're not an absolute measurement. So I want to increase just a hair like that. Okay. Do a little test run. I knew there was some reason I didn't want to do that. Okay. Yeah, I feel like it just needs to go a hair more. I am adjusting in the right direction. Oh, I see. Let's try there. We're ready to begin the actual routing. Try and give you guys a little bit of an action perspective instead of a boring top-down one. Double check that my route is good. That is pretty darn good. I am very, very happy with that. The only issue that I'm gonna have to deal with is I received this piece with the hole already drilled. I think it's just barely going to right on the edge of that. Man, that's close. Really should have taken the time to realize that I could actually customize the kit from Crimson. It's close, but I'm gonna roll with it. We're gonna start on this side, go all the way around to where we've already begun to cut. Yes, yes, yes. Oh no. I think it angled just a little bit right as it went in there. You can kind of see a little disturbance in the force there. Push that flat. It's pretty good. Just the tiniest bit. I think I can fill that in with sanding sealer though. That was one of several pitfalls that I have to deal with. The other ones being these tighter corners near the neck pocket. Let's start around and let's do our arm car, which starts about... Actually, I don't see any reason not to just do this whole side. Okay, I use one of my Music Nomad guitar pads put underneath my little jig here so that it'll quit sliding around. Unfortunately, I think I went a little overboard when I was polishing the top of this workbench. Probably gonna have to go back through with a Brillo pad so that it's got a little more grip to it. Let's bring you back in here, and I'm gonna make this big cut back in position. It's definitely gonna tear that chunk out, but I don't know that there's a ton I can do about that. Push in, and then I'm just gonna ride the curve all the way around until I get back to where I've already started. Yes, no more movement. That'll be nice. Yes, 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 that turned out lovely. In that case, let's finish our top, and then we can get to routing on the back. Now I've already got a channel, I can actually tuck it up against the bearing, and I should be okay. I did have a tiny little bit tear out as it came right there, which I can't be shocked by. So I'll probably come in and sand this down, or even come in with a chisel and just cut it a little bit short there so it's not so flimsy. Same here, no shock. I just need to come in and chop that off, round it off, make it look nice. Top route is done. I'm super happy this went well. Now on here I need to make sure that my route ends at the appropriate places because I'm not bringing the binding up here. So I've got a really nice curve to that. There's a little bit of our belly carve here, so there'll be a little bit of dipping down, but this was a way steeper slope, so that should be absolutely nothing. One thing about this particular design for routing trim, there is a depth limit. So you got to look at the Teflon spacer on the bottom and how far can keep the bottom of this off the workpiece and still allow you to route. It's not infinite, but honestly, for all but the most aggressive carves, I think it works pretty darn well. Workpiece goes that way. And theoretically, yeah, I should be able to route all of this in one continuous go. I need more coffee, or I don't need more coffee, but still gonna drink more coffee. One big cut, here we go. Always be double checking. Absolutely fantastic. Oh no! Check that out. I didn't check this side. It did just dip. Bloop. What I'll need to do is come back in. Fortunately, this is going to be painted and not a raw finish. Otherwise, I'd basically just have to start over. I'll have to put just a little bit of filler in there. Next, I will set up for actually attaching the binding. Okay, time to do the binding. Couple things. The heat gun is your friend. You could probably use a blow dryer, but I've got a heat gun for forming it. Otherwise, when you try and bend around these corners, it's just gonna snap. For adhesion, I prefer to use acetone. I mean, super glue works, but it's just a whole lot easier to use acetone, I think. No mess, no fuss, dries clean, and the adhesion is actually really good. This stuff will basically dissolve in a puddle of acetone, so you just put a little in and it just melts right into the grain. Really good bond. First step though is to warm this bad boy up. Take our binding, put it here. We're just gonna loosen it up. This does not at all make me look like I know what I'm doing. It's fine. Just need to lose a little of that elasticity. There we go. Oh my god, why is this being so difficult? Okay, hold on, I gotta rearrange myself here. I am making my life extraordinarily difficult. Get it into the rough shape. Tape this down, and then after that, this should go a little bit easier, theoretically. Okay, we're gonna do this a little bit different. Stay out of the way, please. Starting to get the hang of it again. Well, it's been a long time since I've done this. Forgotten a lot of lessons learned, I think. Whew. Yeah, it's hot enough. Not sure what's going on right now. What's surprising is you would think along with thicker access it wouldn't bend very well, but actually it does rather easily. I also forget I don't need to heat up this stuff for the whole way, just in places where the bend's a little weird. Yeah, hoping that the acetone will let that relax a little bit into place. If it doesn't, I may have wasted a piece of binding. I have to do it again until I get it right. Here. The whole thing doesn't have to be heated. That was just me being overzealous. Not necessary. But it certainly wouldn't hurt to apply a little heat on these curves. I could tell I was doing something wrong, you know, like just you get that funny feeling like, this isn't right. You just gotta learn to pay attention to it better. Now that is a place I know I do need the heat on. That was more painful than it needed to be. Next step will be to get some acetone. Acetone, whatever the hell you want to call it. These things never pour for a dam. It's like it's specifically designed to make a mess. So let's start here. Press it in, lift it up, give it a little juice. That's more than sufficient. Should evaporate really quickly given how warm it is. You can actually see some of the dye or plastic being drawn into the wood fibers. Neat in my opinion. I don't think this method is necessarily like objectively better than super glue. It's just a different way of doing it. Yeah, really considering having to redo that. Now that I've got this all attached, I may try to hit it with heat again, see if I can get it to smooth out. I mean, when you do it right, it's actually a really, really fast way to basically solvent weld the plastic onto the wood. And it's a really strong bond. I'll get this last little bit down here down, and before I do this whole side, I'll try and get that fixed. Let's go ahead and move the highly flammable acetone out of the way. Give this a little bit of heat, see if I can't get it to shape. Because if that doesn't look perfect, then that's not good enough. There we go. Now we can continue. It is actually sitting just proud of that edge, and that's just not gonna work for me. We're gonna have to work that extra a little bit this way as we go. Definitely did not need to apply heat to that other curve. It's just not that severe. Only need heat for the more intense curves, like rounding the horn there or this little dip here. Wow, there was a lot of force being held on right there. Don't quite have all the curve there I need. If the heat conform to that shape. There's one binding done. I wonder, other YouTubers have a less than exemplary day, kind of day where things are just a bit of a struggle. It doesn't feel like I see a lot of that. If only everything was as easy as these big straight runs. I've been thinking about how to present oneself on a YouTube video. Everybody wants to see somebody who is confident and an authority. But where does that trust in them go when they make mistakes, you know? Like, does everybody accept that that's a normal part of the process, which it is, or does it just make them seem like a hypocrite? I guess that's probably one of those questions that's a bit of a misleading question, because everybody's different, including everybody watching. They probably all got different opinions and reactions and all the rest of it. There. I feel like this curve gets pretty close, needing some heat. Alright, now we're to, it definitely needs a little bit of heat. Awesome, awesome. That went a little better. This is going to be hours of footage with lots of unusable content. Glue down. Let's just start here. I think what I like about the acetone method is it doesn't require you to lift or move the binding in any way. Once you've got it in place, you can squirt the acetone right on the joint, and as the acetone gets sucked into the wood, it pulls the plastic in, binds it to the fibers. It's pretty neat. I should put more in there. I did a little bit of touch-up work off camera. Smooth that out, got rid of some bits there, leveled that out, did the same on the back side, try and get those to match up nice. Also got this glued down completely flat. I did have to use a spot of super glue right there. I needed something with some instantaneous holding power. All the binding is gonna have to be scraped, probably more than one, kind of how it goes with binding. The next step will be to go over the top again with 220, sand down the binding until it's smooth all the way around, and then see how we're doing along the sides. For the most part, this feels really good. It's because that bearing adjusted the depth precisely, and then I'll come back through with a tool from a Telecaster form. This makes scraping simple as can be. All right, backside. Guess I can show a little bit of binding scraping. It's not exactly riveting, not much to it, as opposed to trying to use a X-Acto knife or carpet knife or something like that. This allows me to really get 90 degrees without dragging a bunch of scratches across it. Yeah, it looks like I'm going to scrape all the binding. The surface of this particular binding seems to have an extra glossy finish. So in order to make this consistent, I'm definitely going to have to go through and scrape it all. I forgot how much I do not enjoy scraping binding. Next step will be sanding sealer. Maybe I should clean this up first. Sanding sealer. I've got a few choices. I've got brush on shellac, spray on shellac. I've also got this, which I've never tried before, but which I heard from Chris at Highline Guitars actually works very well as a sanding sealer. What I like about these as choices for sanding sealer is the fact that they dry so very quickly. I think I'm going to go with shellac. Probably use the brush on. That will be the next step. Thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.